can't hear that.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Now, everything old is new again. America's entertainment pop culture talk show.
It may well possess a rudimentary intelligence.
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
Felt a great disturbance in the force.
Hello, I'm Mr. Red.
Come on, bark like a dog for me.
Where's the goodies? Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
I bet you wouldn't have done anything like this if Mom and Dad were here.
You filthy criminal.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Here are your hosts, Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Last spring, over 22 million came together to watch the television event of the season.
I'm so excited right now.
December 18th, we're doing it again. All in the Family and Good Times. Live in front of a studio audience. December 18th on ABC.
Aha, welcome back to Everything Old is New Again. This is Douglas Viviani with our very own meathead himself, David Cohen.
Yes, the meathead.
Don't sound so
Has
excited.
Has a beer in here.
So that was just a little clip of the commercial that they were running for the second time that they were going to do this All in the Family and Jeffersons. And actually, this time they did, the second time they did Good Times instead of Jeffersons.
Did you get the All in the Family reference, though, that I made?
Do it again.
10 seconds ago. Has about a beer in here?
Yeah.
Wow. Archie, when he's asking Edith, you know.
How's about
Edith,
but you didn't pronounce the R and the B, so it sounded, how about a B in here?
How's about a beer in here?
That's it. You got to do really New York accent. Would you come on? Would you? Anyway. Performing the very same scripts they were performing from the classic TV shows from the 70s in 2019.
Why?
Everything old is new again.
Is exactly the same.
It's funny.
Right?
Yes. But they're doing something different with it, you know, and we'll examine that this week. You know, is that a good thing, what they did? Is this something that is more or less a reunion of Everything Old is New Again, or a reunion of all these shows, the All in the Family, Jeffersons, and Good Times, through the scripts, but not the original actors? And did it work? Did we like it? Do we want to see more of it? Do we want to see any other shows? What about reunion shows? Are they something that's popular and successful? We'll examine all of that and more on Everything Old is New Again. Now, David Cohen, do you think these, I don't know what to call these now, these reimaginings of these shows work?
I don't think so. First of all in the Family, these shows took place at a time that's difficult to recapture because they were very plugged into what was happening socially and politically at the time, especially All in the Family. But it's kind of neat at a novelty level to see new actors play the character. So in other words, to me, it's almost like a play that you're seeing on Broadway where, you know, sometimes the actors change once the show runs a certain amount of time, and they'll substitute a new star, a new supporting cast in. So to me, that's the way I looked at it. It's sort of like a play that they're redoing with a new cast. But I don't think it works, and I don't think they should continue to do it.
I tell you, it's hard because let's just take All in the Family first. You had Carol O'Connor, of course, Maureen Stapleton, Sally Struthers, and Rob Reiner. Now, of course, that was on for years and years and years, and it was groundbreaking. Everyone remembers that show and those characters. But especially all of them really became caricatures of themselves, if you really think about it. They were Mad Magazine, and there's done parodies of them, and everyone knows Archie Bunker. That's even almost a term of art now. It's almost like we say Scrooge, Archie Bunker.
But it is a whole different generation now. And younger people today, they don't know Archie Bunker from a hole in the wall. So when you're seeing Woody Harrelson, it's like a brand new show.
True, but also for those who haven't seen it in the original run, maybe 5-10 years after, it's barely ever, if at all, on reruns now. Correct? I mean, do you see it? Although this stuff is now making it come back to life. There's a station by us that does run it. I believe Saturday nights they run their original. It's PIX, Channel 11 is running their original lineup from the 70s, Saturday night lineup on Saturday nights. with these shows.
Yeah, you can see it. I mean, if you want to see the original All in the Family, there are ways to see it.
But it's not in your face like Gilligan's Island or something like that, you know?
Oh, God. Yeah, that's... Why is Gilligan's Island in your face right now? Did you try ever? I tried watching one. I said, okay, look, I haven't seen this in, 30 years. Let me see if it's as dumb as I remember. It's even dumber than I remembered it. It's unbelievable how that show got on television.
I know, it's really... And we're going to, now they mentioned that, we'll look at that in the next section, because I want to finish talking about this for a moment, but let's look at Gilligan's Island, some of these crazy shows from the 60s and 70s, and even 50s that became the focus of a reunion show or two, and see how they handled it. But before I get there, the thing is, I think the Archie Bunkie character was iconic and hard to, and very unique, and with Good Times, the JJ character, with what's his name, Walker,
Jimmy Walker.
Jimmy Walker was so unique that you can't repeat them. And when you try to imitate them, when Woody Harrelson does what we did with the "Come on, get me the beer, would you?" that kind of stuff, it's and you see Marissa Tomei, who's playing Edith, and she's running on the stage, and she doesn't have the exact run, but she's trying to imitate it. It's not like it's a regular play or a Broadway play or something where you can overlook those characters and the new interpretation because they're doing bad imitations of the original.
If you didn't see the original, which most people today have not seen, then it would be brand new to you. So
yes, but they're doing bad imitations of the old instead of interpreting it themselves.
That's your opinion because you've seen the original. Then maybe if someone who's 21 years old saw the original and then saw the reboot, they might agree with you. But, if you're seeing it for the first time, I don't think it's fair to compare. I think it has to stand on its own. But that being said, you can't continue to run All in the Family episodes. You know why? Because they wouldn't make it on the air. Most of those episodes were so politically charged and using the vernacular of the time, which could not ever get aired right now. So there's only maybe a few All in the Families, and I'll say that for the Jeffersons too, that could even air today. So I don't even think this is going to be an issue going forward.
Well, and that's the sad thing. I'm wondering if, like in our day and age, we need more shows like All in the Family done. I mean, Blackish kind of does it in a politically correct way now, if that's fair to say. But we need more stuff to break through all this quagmire of everybody arguing with each other on one side or the other and being sensitive about things. Yes, we have grown from there. Yes, we don't want to use certain names and certain language and all that. But all I'm saying is the dialogue between two different points of view is healthy, I think, on some level, especially when you do it with humor, to show that both sides are human and both sides are right and wrong in different things. And that's what this show did. But you're right. We're not in the environment where that can be done right now. You're probably right. But, they try, and I give them credit for it. But even if
I don't give them credit for it. They're not trying. They're not doing anything new. They're just taking an old script, putting some actors in it. I don't give them credit for doing anything other than trying to cash in on something that worked 30, 40 years ago. How about something like what you were just saying, Doug? How about something original? How about that? Instead of putting all that effort into just rehashing an old script, why not try to make a brand new show that could be a little more cutting edge than Blackish is, let's say. Right.
I mean, but they did the. It's incredible. They do all the sets are remade exactly. The costumes or whatever they're wearing is all the same. It's very interesting that they do put a lot into it, and I guess it's a good social experiment, we could say. But the question is, can you go home again? Can you do something like this? Maybe like you say, on Broadway or a play that hasn't been on television with the original. Like I saw Wicked with the original two people, Dina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth. Now, for me to go back and watch, if I was to go to Broadway again and watch that now, I probably would compare the performances, like, not like, whatever, but probably get over it and kind of be able to do it, because it's not in my face every week. But if Wicked was a TV series every week with those two characters, those two actors or actresses, and then try to replace them umpteen years later, I don't know that I can get that out of my mind.
Right. So for you and me, seeing this, reboot of All in the Family, it's a novelty item, right? Nothing more.
I just think it's interesting that the scripts are the ones they've chosen, and All in the Family is really especially, but Good Times was too, and Jeffersons. The scripts are timely in that the issues they bring up then are somewhat relatable now as well. No,
absolutely.
So it just goes to the strength of those shows, not necessarily the strength of the performances. I mean, I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of the performances. But we'll take a look at that in live shows and reunions when we get back. Right here on Everything Old is New Again.
If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where fashion sits?
You're listening to Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
The Cramdens and the Nortons are in for a real shock.
There are folks that eat your heart out.
That's hard to believe. The Great One and his court are back for another holiday special, the Honeymooners Valentine Show.
There we go, on ABC, way back when. That is 1977 promo for the Honeymooners Reunion. We're here on Everything Old is New Again. I'm here with Douglas Viviani, with our very own Norton himself, David Cohen.
Hey, Ralphie boy.
Now, we're just springboarding off of last section's discussion of these live performances, the All in the Family and Jeffersons and Good Times. I just wanted, before we get into reunions, because that to me seems like sort of a reunion and springboards us into a discussion about reunion shows, which that clip was about. As we remember, Carrie Underwood was in Sound of Music, was the first live Broadway play was put on television, I think around 2015, something like that. Since then, they did, I'm just going to throw some ratings to see what's going on. The Wiz Live had 11.5 million viewers. Grease Live had 12 million viewers, so they did well with those. Then they did Peter Pan, Hairspray, Jesus Christ Superstar. They all got about 9 million viewers. Then they did The Passion, if you remember that. Then they did A Christmas Story Live, which was terrible. They did 4.5 million viewers. And then the debacle with Rent Live in 2019. The actor was performing in the rehearsal and broke his leg, so they had to do the taped version of Rent. That only got 3.4 million viewers. So, what's the future of this? We're going downhill. What's happened? Hairspray was a real big success, though that worked. But they had planned to do Bye Bye Birdie with Jennifer Lopez. That's been canceled or postponed indefinitely. Then they said, NBC said, well, forget all this. How about a drama, like a play, a live play? Let's do A Few Good Men with Alec Baldwin. And that's been postponed. And now they're thinking about a live version of Hamilton, but that's postponed because Hamilton they want to do a movie for instead. So now we've got all that as like it looks bleak. And then out of the sunset, maybe the sunrise, rides in on a horse, a 90-year-old producer that is revisiting a terrific movie that was turned into an okay play, musical, that is now scheduled to perform. And it's none other than a gentleman that was almost a guest on our show, Mel Brooks. And they are going to be doing Young Frankenstein live on television. Good,
is that
bad.
A definite?
That's a definite. Is that good, bad, or what?
Yeah, I don't know.
You're nervous.
No, it shouldn't have been made into a musical.
That's the problem. The music stinks, right?
Yeah. And now they're going to put it on TV?
Yes.
Why not just... they should... If they could do not a musical version, but a play, a stage version of the movie. I'd much rather see that. That was funny.
See, that I agree with 100%. That's the way to go. We need some more drama and comedy. Not everything has to be a musical. Matter of fact, if you go around to your local high schools, you go to your local, where what do you call that? Where they do the plays, like your local playhouse, whatever, and community theater. More than 9 out of 10 now in this day are musicals, and they don't have to. There's so many plays and comedy plays and drama that should be also recognized as great entertainment.
Oh, absolutely.
Because a lot of these,
I'd much rather see a play than a musical.
Yes,
any day.
I mean, a musical is as hard as a comedy in some ways. In other words, it's easy to just do a musical when the music stinks. To come up with a musical with terrific music and a great story is really hard to do.
Yeah.
So, like Little Mermaid, if you remember that in November of last year, they played the actual cartoon, the animated feature, and then they would cut to the music, they would cut to a live performance, which I thought was actually done pretty well, but wasn't all that well received. Although it did get 9 million viewers, I should say. It did well enough that way. So I don't know where we're going with all these live performances. I'm hoping that they continue. I think it's great in theory, but in practice, it's like they get it right, maybe a third of the time. I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that ship has sailed, thankfully. Well, other than Young Frankenstein.
Well, I don't think so. I think you're going to see more, but let's see. Now, talking about reunion shows, there are tons of reunion shows. There used to be all the time. Recently, there was the 50th anniversary of Carol Burnett. Now, there's different ways to do these reunion shows. That Honeymoon is one that we heard was a promo in 1977 and 1981. The cast, and it wasn't the same females, but it was the same. It was the same. Jackie Gleason and Art Carney actually did brand new scripts in the same setting. Now, did you remember seeing either or both of those?
I don't.
So that was one of my favorite shows of all time. So I remember seeing those as a kid.
So what did you think of the new script?
They were okay. They weren't terrible. They were watchable.
It's a ringing endorsement.
Yeah, they were watchable. It was a nice
watchable. Says Doug Viviani of Everything Old is New Again. Not terrible. Doug Viviani, Everything Old.
They were. It tickled your memory, let's say, but it was not.
There's a glowing review. Tickles my memory, Doug Viviani.
Of the better performances. It was like one of their worst shows of the 39. But
there you go.
But one of the worst of the Honeymoon is one of the worst.
The 40th best episode. Doug Viviani.
But the question is, isn't the 40th episode of Honeymooners better than more than half of the things that are on TV right now that are comedies?
You saw it. I didn't.
It was. The Honeymooners is better. It was better than a lot of the stuff that's on now. So that's one way to do it. Which we'll look at. Another way to do it is what they did with Carol Burnett, the 50th anniversary, where they come and they bring out Carol Burnett with a host, interview her, and have her talk to some of her co-hosts or stars in the show, and they discuss the show and behind the scenes, which I think is not a bad idea. Let's hear a smidge of that.
And when I read that, I just automatically started talking like this.
Yep, and then I started talking like that.
Sometimes when I walk into that bathroom, Eunice, I swear I see him sitting there.
Mama, you never told me Daddy died in the bathroom.
Somehow Eunice spoke to me, and then we were going to hire an older actress to play Mama, but Bob Mackey, our costume designer, suggested Vicky.
So now here's a caveat. Presuming you are a fan of the Carol Burnett show, which is the reason why you would be watching the anniversary show, that was interesting discussion for not for me, but for someone I presume that was into that show. Hey, how did you come up with that Mama's Family, whatever that skit was? And they did that throughout the show for 2 hours. They brought out Lyle Wagner and whoever was still around, and so it was a pretty cool way to do it. So it's a nice one over or once over to see what it's all about. Does that make
so it was a
sense?
combination of a reunion show and sort of like a behind-the-scenes kind of presentation.
Right, which I think is done a decent way. What doesn't work to me is something like I Dream of Jeannie 15 years later, and Larry Hagman was doing Dallas, and you've got Wayne Rogers instead, and you get something like this.
I like the fact that we are a normal family, and that Tony Jr. is your average red-blooded American kid who doesn't know that his mother is a genie. So let's leave it that way, okay? Cheers.
Have you forgotten that your average red-blooded American kid might have some green corpuscles running through his veins?
TJ, a genie?
Gin.
Genie, whatever. Look, I know he doesn't have your powers. You know, when TJ blinks his eyes, I think it probably means he's got something in them.
Is there a joke in there? I'm not sure. I don't know how it's going there.
That sounded pretty lame. Is that from the actual show?
That was the actual show.
Where did it become like some drama?
It didn't work. Try it now at Gilligan's Island. Back to the interview of Bob Denver.
Well, fortunately, the Gilligan's Island deal just stayed on and on and on.
It must be up there in the top rerunner of all series, I think.
Yeah. Now, is Gilligan a first name or a last name?
Well, on the show, we never said, but I asked Sherwood Schwartz, the writer, and he said if we ever going to use it, it would have been Willie Gilligan.
Willie Gilligan?
Willie Gilligan, yeah.
See, that's a scoop here now.
Again, presuming you need a scoop on Gilligan's Island, there you go.
Willie Gilligan.
Glad they didn't. It wasn't like that was like Kramer of the day. You know, like what's his name? They came up with a Cosmo Kramer. It worked. Willie Gilligan would have been a laughing
stock. Well, if you're a real historian, it should have been Dobie Gilligan.
Exactly.
Right? Instead of Dobie Gillis, the former character that Bob Denver played.
Which was almost the same guy, if you really think about it.
Pretty much, yeah. More of a hep cat.
Yes. Yeah. I would like to have interviewed him. He seemed like a nice guy.
Yeah.
And really had some huge success with really bad performances.
Did we talk about
good performances of bad characters?
Gilligan's Island, how bad it was. Right?
We will do that as we return right here on Everything Old is New Again.
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale.
Now, Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Welcome to Everything Old is New Again, 2044. This is Douglas Viviani. I'm carrying forward the Everything Old is New Again brand by myself. I've had, as you know, the last 10 years. I'm trying to get David Cohen back on the show. We've been approached 30 years later for a 30-year anniversary of Everything Old is New Again. NBC wants to put us on the air, much like the old Sunshine Boys movie in 1975, trying to reunite David Cohen and myself for a television special. 10 years ago, as you know, he retired from the show just when we were on top. And, of course, I'm upset, but I'm willing to give it a shot. Welcome him back here into the studio and try to rekindle the fire. David Cohen, you're back after 10 years. How's it feel?
Feels okay.
I mean, you're in your 80s now. I know that. You could try to show a little smidge of energy. Did you take your vitamin B this morning? What's up?
Yeah, I took all my vitamins, I'm about as excited about this show as I've ever been.
There you go. David Cohen, Douglas Viviani. Back here on Everything Old is New Again, talking about reunion shows. Now, that was our attempt to do a reunion show when we didn't have the need for a reunion show, but we did that as a vehicle for clips of Best Of back in show number 138. If you want to hear that, go to everythingoldisnewagain.biz. That's .biz. And
that really is how our reunion show would sound. I'm convinced.
Exactly. Now,
hey, you're bothering me with a reunion show.
Now, here's the thing. With that, we then took the form of more or less a documentary, trying to show with interviews, sort of a clip show with interviews of the original host. So if we did a reunion show, the original host would be there and we would do clips and look back and interview. That's one way to do it, which like the Carol Burnett did. I think that's kind of a way that seems to work for these reunion shows. How about you? Any idea?
Yeah. I agree. I don't remember doing that show, to be honest with you.
All right. Do you remember this one? Show number 137. where we look back in a little bit of a creative way, too, and try to see almost a reunion-ish type of show for Everything Old Is New
Welcome to the History Channel Radio Edition 2034 Year in Review. I'm Bradford Wells III, and this week we celebrate the 20th anniversary of the classic radio show Everything Old Is New Again. In 2014, 20 years ago, talk radio was defined by sports talk, political talk, and financial talk. Lifelong radio fan Douglas Viviani and his co-host David Cohen burst onto the talk radio scene and did what many thought was impossible. It turned talk radio on its ear, providing a format that made radio fun again. This week on the History Channel Radio Edition 2034 Year in Review, we look into the birth of the current ratings king and talk radio phenomenon, which has since been imitated but never equaled. America's entertainment pop culture talk show sold itself to the networks, in the words of Douglas Viviani, as two guys sitting in a bar arguing over who is the best Disney princess. It was a bold format change at the time, a comparison of present pop culture to pop culture of the past. So let's turn back the clock to the early years of Everything Old Is New Again.
So there we go. And what we did, we then had two guests. Had that gentleman that was doing that, Bradford, what's his name? Bradford Wells. And then we had... Right. Then we had Johnny
grandson.
We had Johnny Jones as a reporter, and the two of them would go back and forth and reminisce about the show as if we didn't exist anymore in 2034. And so they were talking and reminiscing about what their dads used to think about our show and all this. So there's another way to do a reunion show, even if you don't have all of the participants, because it's all on film or tape. So that's sort of the way to do it. Does any of it work? You know, I think those are some ways that work, but you've got to... The reunion show only works to the fans. I think what, for the most part, does not work is what we heard there with Irene Magini when they try to redo a brand new episode, and the chemistry... It sounds like a great idea, but I don't know that the chemistry ever returns. Does that make sense? Do you remember any of them where they've redone and it's been good?
No. In fact, another one that came to mind for me was The Odd Couple. They tried to reboot that several times with different actors. None of it worked. But eventually they got Jack Klugman and Tony Randall back to do an Odd Couple reunion show, which was, I want to say it was like an hour special or something like that.
Right.
Which was like, oh, wow, this is it. They finally got the guys together again. Brand new script. This is going to be great. And I remember it was like just okay, you know? And so there's an instance where you brought back the same characters, the same setting, the same actors, same setting, and you sort of just did a continuation of the old series. And it just couldn't recapture that magic that happened when the show first ran. I don't know if you remember that.
I do. I also remember they then parlayed that into a movie years after that. A Couple 2 movie.
Which just didn't work either.
Now, here's the thing. It just hit me. You know, writing, of course, is extraordinarily important in all of these, if not the most important thing. It's possible. Think about it. The actors are in their 20s and 30s. It could be the writers were 40s, 50s, and 60s. And it's possible that what's happening here is they're not getting the original writers back on the shows because the original writers are gone.
I think they did for The Odd Couple. And it just didn't. That's why it was like people were so looking forward to it. And, you know, even the original, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the reason I was so excited for it is that everyone was back. And it just didn't recapture that old magic.
Well, here's one.
So the question is, could you ever do that for any show?
Exactly.
Really?
And here's an answer that I think kind of worked. It was 2004. Dick Van Dyke, Alan Brady, Carl Reiner comes back and he wants to hire Dick to write his eulogy in advance of the funeral. Mary Tyler Moore was there. Their son was there. Jerry Van Dyke was there. The neighbor Millie Helper was there. And it was pretty good, but here's the thing. It was written by Carl Reiner. I'm going to play it for 2 seconds here, and then we'll see.
Oh, yeah, it's been a long time. Well, I think we talked at Mel Cooley's memorial. That's right, yeah. Then we had a little chat at Buddy's funeral, right? Well, thank you, Alan. I'm just speaking from the heart. You know, Mel and Buddy were very... Alan, to what do I owe this call? Huh? You know... That's cute. You're not serious. No, I guess you wouldn't joke about a thing like that.
Joke about a thing like what?
Death.
I mean, you had Mary Tyler Moore and Dick Van Dyke, icons, and Carl Reiner, but they were all in their 80s at the time. So the question is, did it work? It was pretty. I'm not going to say it was bad. It was pretty good. It was something. I watched the whole thing, and there were legit jokes, and the camaraderie was the same, and it was pretty good. But in your 80s, unfortunately, I don't think you have the chops that you had when you were in your 30s to do comedy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess there are a lot of things that could go wrong when you try to do a reunion show. Age is one of them. But I really think that, I see old shows or even current shows that are popular as, sitting in this time capsule, right? All of the planets are aligning and the show is successful in that time period for particular reasons. And when you try to move that forward out of that time capsule, it just loses something. And if even one little thing is out of kilter, whether it's a new actor or whether they're aging or whether it's different writers, it just changes everything, and it's never really the same.
But then you got Roseanne, and you've got that other one that was on Murphy Brown, and what was the other one that they redid that's just going on?
Will and Grace.
Will and Grace. Those worked.
Yeah, but you know what? But they didn't wait. They came back pretty much right after they were canceled.
Right.
So it's not like the flash forward was that much into the future.
Right. Dick Van Dyke was, let's get it straight. Dick Van Dyke was off at about 66. And 76, 86, 96, it's 40, almost 40 years later they're getting back.
Yeah.
There's got to be a little
rough.
Roseanne
was I don't know, maybe it was, 6 years, 7 years, something like that.
That makes sense. Now, here's another one that goes on and on and on and on, The Brady Bunch. I mean, there have been sequels. There have been all kinds of... let me hear. I have a Brady Bunch. They did a variety hour. Then they did The Brady Girls Get... Whoa! Then they did I'll do this again. They did the Brady Bunch, had the Brady Bunch hour, which was a variety hour. Then they had the Brady Girls Get Married in 81. Then they had Brady Brides, actually another TV show. A Very Brady Christmas, they did, in 88. The Bradys, another reunion after that. And then there was the Very Brady sequel in 89. So... I don't know. Do you remember any of those? Are they memorable? Did any of them work? What did happen with the Bradys?
I do. I remember them, and I remember that they weren't so bad because just the fact that they were able to get everybody back together again, it was a pretty large cast.
Yeah.
And the fact that, it was never a serious show to begin with, so... It's like,
Let's put it this way.
How much can they screw up the Brady Bunch?
Right. The show wasn't that great to begin with, so a sequel or any of these reunions doesn't have to be that
silly.
great.
The whole thing was silly. When they got back together, it was just as silly. It was a novelty thing. Right. It was fun. If it would have continued as a series, there's no way I would have kept watching
it did. The Brady Girls did. It was canceled after 6 episodes. But you know who does it right? Without hesitation, without question, Star Trek did it correctly. Look at the success of those movies.
Because they kept changing things, right?
Correct. We'll be back right after this. Everybody else do again to examine Star Trek and even more on the reunion show.
This is Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
I'm really excited. Returning to CBS after 20 years. Don't forget this was a network that fired us.
It's the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour 20-year reunion with Steve Martin, Glenn Campbell.
All right, so that's Everything Old is New Again's look at this, the reunion show, and also that springboards off of the live performance of All in the Family and Jeffersons and Good Times. So we're trying to evaluate and see, are these reunion shows worthwhile? Do they work? We just ended there a little discussion briefly of Star Trek. We're saying Star Trek is the ultimate of this. The original series in the 60s goes off the air. End of the 70s, they do a movie. The movie franchise goes to I believe, the mid-90s. Forget this, all the other shows. I'm talking about the original show. And all of those movies worked, just about. All those movies made good money. And, obviously there was 6 of them. So that was a reunion of this original cast that went on and on and on for 30, 40 years and worked.
See, I think that might be a better way to do it via movies, because it's not a recurring series, so it's not always in your face. You look forward to the movies. You know it's a one-time deal, so you're going to go see it. And then if the movie's well done, which the Star Trek movies were, you're going to go see the next one, too. So, maybe that's a better way to do a reunion.
It's possible, but we saw that with, the Brady Bunch did 2 movies, but there wasn't the original cast, and they were actually pretty good.
And that was a really good movie. The one where it was just different actors doing the movie. I actually enjoyed that
a lot. It was almost a parody. I think it was kind of a parody of the show, which was good.
It was a great idea.
It was very well done. I agree. But The Odd Couple did it in the theaters twice. It was The Odd Couple 2.
In the movie theaters, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, a real movie, not a TV movie, and it flopped. So it's really hard. I love the idea of the reunion, but I think it's got to, like you say, I don't know how Star Trek did it, honestly, that made it work so well, because there were huge gaps. And by the way, if you remember the first movie, they didn't get it right. The first movie was horrible. So that could have ended all of this had Star Wars not come around and reinvigorated the science fiction genre, where they said, let's try one more time. And then our friend Nicholas Meyer came along and really saved the franchise at that point with Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, I think that I don't agree. I think the first Star Trek movie was better than you remember, and I think that's why. And I think it did really well in the box office because of the, there were so many Star Trek fans, so the quality almost didn't matter. It did so great at the box office. I think that's why it kept going.
Right.
But I still think that's the way to go for a lot of these reunion shows. I do, instead of putting them back on TV.
Well, the Munsters did a movie in 1966, which is the year they were canceled, and that did okay. And then they did a Munsters Revenge in 81. Do you remember this?
Oh, I'd like you to meet my family.
Not all of us. I just remembered I have to go. Go. I have to go now.
I don't know what it is about you, Marilyn. You always seem to attract nervous boyfriend.
I don't know if you remember that one in 1981, The Munsters. It was on television. The original cast, the last time the original cast was all together. So that, that one actually kind of works. So it's hard to say because there's a reimagining, or not really, but it's a new episode that it played off the same old jokes, but it worked if you enjoyed the series. Yeah. One that I thought was original.
Plus, you saw the green makeup, right? The movie was in color, and the Munsters TV show was black and white, so that was really cool too.
Right, exactly. Now here's one we'll have a discussion about. I'm pretty sure. Let's just play it and see if you recognize what it is and see how they did.
It's an unwritten rule of etiquette, George. Who says so? No one knows. That's why it's unwritten. You do not blow your nose into a cloth napkin in a restaurant.
Why? They wash it.
It's just not done in polite society. It's not done in impolite society. Even the impolite don't do it.
Well, I live by my rules. I don't live by your rules.
Did you do this in front of your wife?
All the time.
Can't figure out why she left you.
Now, there you go. Seinfeld on Curb Your Enthusiasm, the closest we've had to a reunion show for them. I'll reserve my opinion. What was your opinion of their, quote, reunion on Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Well, it was like a show within a show, so you had to sort of take it for what it was. It was good seeing them all again, but I don't think that's how the show would look if they did a real reunion.
Here's the thing. I think that, because that was written by Larry David too, that I differ a little bit. I think the part where characters were behind the scenes of the remaking of the reunion show on Curb was terrific.
Yes.
When they actually did the reunion show itself, and I don't think they did this on purpose, I thought it was horrible. George, did you hear how he's overacting there? And how it sort of was the same in the last 2 years of the season of the show when Larry David left. He became terrible. I think he became unhinged. He was screaming all the time. He did these things that were overacting. Did caricatures of himself. I thought he ruined his own performance of George in the last 2 seasons, and you could hear it right there with all that yelling. No. Is that funny?
I don't agree with that.
You think Did you think that this was funny, that clip?
No, but you know what? I think people like you need to hear the audience laugh track to know when to laugh. I think that's what you're.
No, listen to hear this guy.
There was no laugh track, so you didn't think it was funny because no one was laughing.
Excuse me, there was a laugh track. Listen.
By my
Listen,
rules. I don't
there
live
is a
by
laugh
your-
track. Look.
Well, I live by my rules. I don't live by your rules.
The original George did not yell like that. Never. Watch the first 7 seasons. He never yelled like that.
Okay, yeah, it did sound a little.
And all he ever did the last 2 seasons was yell like that. Sorry, that's my. And so my point is, I think even Seinfeld, one of the best shows of all time, in a reunion show would not work as well as the original. Honeymooners didn't work as well as the original. Odd Couple didn't work as well as the original. And Seinfeld would never work as well as the original. There's no way. You just lose that chemistry. It can't be done. That's my point.
I agree 100%. I'm not disagreeing.
The fact that we've said that belies what we want to do next, but we'll throw it out there anyway. Are there any shows out there that you would like to see a reunion of? Okay, such as?
Well, not that I'd like to see it, but one I think that would be massively successful is Friends. And I say that because, not that it was a great show to start with. There were some funny seasons, I guess. But Friends has sort of caught on with another generation of younger people who are watching it in reruns and are very, very involved in the show. So I think if the original actors came back and did a reunion show, it would be huge. Not that any of them need to do it. They're all multimillionaires. Why get out of bed to do that sort of thing?
Right.
But I think, and I personally would watch it, I think that would be a great one. Regardless of the quality, I think that would be really good.
All right, it's possible.
But that's one that comes to mind.
Right, but I agree, but they talk about this all the time, and every actor, and they never say never, but every actor says, we're never going to do this. It's almost like these Star Trek conventions we used to go to a lot all the time. We'd say, oh, can you get Whoopi Goldberg? Can you get this one or that one to go on the show? Christopher Lloyd to go on the convention circuit. And when they were hot as actors and so forth, they never would consider the convention. But we always said, sooner or later, stick in there long enough, they will show up. They might be 90, but sooner or later, they show up. And every one of them, Christy Alley, every one of them showed up at a Star Trek convention sooner or later.
I think it'll happen with Friends. I really do.
Yeah, well, I just
think to what you were just saying, at some point, you're like, all right, I do need a little money. Let's do it.
But I think it's not going to be till for another 10, 15 years. That's just my take on it.
That could be. That could very well be.
Because it's when they're sort of on, when they don't have that. And we talk about all of them have to do it. So when all of their careers are sort of on the downside, they all recognize that. That's when they say, "Oh, let's do that." Like look at Tony Randall and Jack Klugman. They did that way into their 70s.
Or if one of the Friends actors is in dire straits, or two of them are, and they really need the reunion, I think they're such close friends that the others might rally around and say,
although
okay,
I heard that they don't like this guy Schwimmer and Luke Perry. They're having problems with not Luke Perry. What's his name?
Luke Perry.
Luke Perry. They have problems with him, but Luke, whatever his name is, the other guy. The two that are not working these days. The one was in the Odd Couple. What's his name? The guy was in the Odd Couple. And
yeah, I know who you mean.
All right, and Schwimmer. When I understand, those two are not on the ins with.
But they would still do it for them.
You really think so?
They're all still pretty tight.
Okay,
yeah, I happen to know.
Oh, you do?
And I'm not putting myself on it. Yes, through
you have some inside information on this, or
I believe it or not, I do. And I happen to know that they are all still, stay in touch, and some of them are still very, very tight.
Yes, but are all of them, you need all 6?
No, but enough where they would rally.
Okay.
If somebody needed help, they would rally.
All right, well, there you go. I think, what's his name? Is it Matthew Perry?
Perry.
So I think it might be him that might be the one that gets them together. How about that?
Yeah, who knows, right?
Certainly not us. We have completed our review, unfortunately.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it. Of the reunion and of
Bring
live
back
TV.
Freaks and Geeks.
All right, ooh, that's a good one. Any others, real quick?
Oh yeah, there's a bunch. But
go ahead,
we're out of time.
Give us a list.
Another show. We'll do another show.
All right, we'll be back next week to do all things pop culture, entertainment, have some fun. David Cohen, Douglas Viviani, everything old's new again. This was a good one too.
The Andy Griffith Show. Starring...
Everything Old is New Again is sponsored by the law office of Douglas Viviani. Douglas Viviani has been providing quality legal service for over 26 years. We're a general practice firm and can handle any legal matter you may have for a reasonable fee. If you're involved in a car accident, starting a business, planning your estate, or need a criminal attorney, please call 631-681-1910 or email us at vivianilaw@aol.com for a free consultation. Get the justice you deserve. Contact the law office of Douglas Viviani at vivianilaw@aol.com.
You've been listening to Everything Old is New Again, America's pop culture entertainment talk show. Find us on the web at everythingoldisnewagain.biz. That's .biz.
See you next week. Same bat time, same bat station.